with the direction that college football is heading, all of this restructuring, all of this conference realignment, what's your temperature on it? USC, UCLA going to the Midwest to play in the Big Ten, the Pac-12 maybe falling apart. Like, is that a symptom of a larger issue, with the health of college football, or is it simply just kind of restructuring as we move into a new, more lucrative era?
So I think in the history of college football, we haven't always had the realignment as significantly as we do now, but there's been some realignment and some big changes. And for example, I used to work in the Southern Conference, which, now is like Mercer and Furman and these schools. But back then there used to be schools that are now in the SEC, 80 years ago that played in the Southern Conference. So we've seen, changes and rises and falls of different conferences. And I think, for the Pac-12, for example, I think COVID's been a big part of their downfall. Of they didn't exactly seem to go in or out of the pandemic as well as some other schools. And that's up to, your own opinion of what that means. But in terms of the landscape of football, that conference since 2020 has continued to slide. So because of that, I am at this point, and I try to reserve my excitement because there's always unintended consequences of change. But I've always been one that loves the opportunity for more blockbuster in-season matchups. I've always thought, like, what if Georgia could play USC in week 3? That would be really cool to me. But, instead of that, we'll have Michigan, USC, and that kind of thing. Right. So Georgia, Texas, those are the things that I look at of. And I hope what we're getting towards with this is maybe extended conference schedules because the conferences are getting bigger. Maybe we get to 9 games, and then that's one less Charleston Southern game I have to sit through, and I hate to say it that way, but I mean that as a fan and as a reporter. There's not a ton we get out of, Clemson versus Furman or, Clemson versus Louisiana Tech, and respect to those teams. But the fans want to see Clemson play Michigan or Clemson play UCLA or, Clemson play Georgia, for example, which we will be getting plenty of, I think 5 in the next 11 years. So that'll be exciting. And those kinds of things to me, we get like the 1 out of conference game, 8 conference games, maybe 3 or 4 are good depending on your school. Yeah. So I think we're getting towards the schedule in season, even though with the expanded playoff, they may not mean quite as much for who gets in or who does this. We're going to see more quality matchups, and we're going to see national matchups. I like football as a regional sport, but because I like it as a regional sport, I want to see my region play your region. And I want to see, what does the Midwest versus the South look like in a showdown? And I want to see it more than maybe once in a bowl game or twice in a year. So personally, I'm excited. I know there's unintended consequences of these things, but that's something that right now I try to stay optimistic on because I know a lot of the change, can bother people. So I try to say, hey, look at the bright side. We've got Georgia, Texas in 2024 and UCLA, playing Michigan or Ohio State. Those kinds of things are exciting to me.
Gracious, how about that?